There we are. Back.
We're live?
Walk the Talk America presents Guns and Mental Health, a podcast for firearms owners, clinicians, and the curious public.
Welcome back, listening audience or viewing audience, however you're listening to us right now. Welcome to the Walk the Talk America Guns and Mental Health podcast. Today, I'm joined with my co-host, Kevin Barry. How you doing, Kevin?
Surviving. We got a sickness working through the house, but other than that, doing good.
Yeah, it seems like it's been the norm for the last couple of weeks. I got sick twice after SHOT Show. I didn't get sick from SHOT Show, but I got sick twice after SHOT Show. Respiratory things. It's crazy. I couldn't shake it. But today is an awesome episode, and I say that because this is a lighter episode. This is a chance for us to breathe a little bit. The last couple guests have had some horrific tragedy in their lives, and today we're going to talk about something fun. We're going to talk to a man named Grant Majors. Grant is a friend of mine, and he is not a stuntman out of Hollywood. Grant, has anyone ever told you have the perfect stunt name?
Yeah. I've gotten that a couple of times.
Yeah, you're either the University of Texas quarterback or Hollywood stunt coordinator.
Yeah.
Grant Majors. Grant is on the cutting edge of technology, I think. I think you've come up with one of the most cool ideas that I've heard in a long time. So much that when I had this discussion with Martin Tuason, who's the president of Arms Corps, and I was telling him about what you created, he actually said, I saw that. I thought it was satire, right? Like that's how forward thinking, you were when you created this product, which we're going to get into, but you are the president, CEO, founder of American Rounds.
Yeah,
correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm going to let you take it from here to introduce yourself and let's talk about how we got here and what this product is. And because I think a lot of the listeners, there might be a few out there that still think the way Martin did, like, oh, that can't be real or that can't be true.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for the intro. So my partner, Lawrence Songer, and I, we were looking at this technology for a different industry altogether.
Which is?
So we were kind of in the nutraceutical space. We were both doing consulting work at the time for a group out of New York that had some various nutraceutical products, and they were just looking at innovative ways to get to the market. So we started looking at this technology, to get those products into grocery stores, across the country. And as I started talking to the various executives with the grocery store companies, they actually approached us and said, "Hey, we love this idea? We love the concept. Could you guys offer ammo through your machines?" And it took me about 6 seconds to contemplate it, and it was an immediate, absolutely, we can. Hung up the phone with those guys. I called Lawrence. I told him we're in the ammo business. we hadn't even done anything yet. He was like, "That sounds good to me," because we're both big 2A. We're both big 2A guys, and so it was just an immediate yes. We loved the idea. So that was in spring of 2023. We formed the company by summer of 23 and had our first machine, installed. And so the concept was to take, make ammunition sales more convenient for customers, and then bring a level of maybe more responsibility into that space. So we launched, what most people would call, ammo vending machines. We prefer to call them automated retail machines, but because vending machines kind of give people the wrong idea. They think of the old,
right. It's like the cigarette smoking machine or cigarette machines, right? That as a kid, if we just had money and no one was watching, we could literally walk up to and pull cigarettes out of them.
So we rolled our first automated retail machine for ammo out November of 23, and we've just been kind of grinding as a startup and growing since, and we're now in 4 states, getting soon to be five or six, hopefully in the next 6 weeks.
So what were like those first whiteboard sessions? So now you thank God, like both of you weren't married to the idea of what you had before and could pivot, right? But what were those first whiteboard sessions like? That must have been insanity because there's nothing like this.
Yeah, so that was kind of like, I mean, I immediately said yes to those guys without even checking to see if we could do it. I was like,
The
oh,
legality of
it's
it.
like,
Yeah.
they're like, "Yeah, no, we're doing it. We'll figure it out." And it was kind of that way. We just kind of jumped in with both feet. The immediate first thing we did, obviously, was just look at all the um regulations and state regulations and things that we needed, being compliant with, state to state. Turns out, with the exception of about 6 states, you can probably name them. Um, we were completely, right out of the box, compliant. In fact, we actually went above the standards that are out there for ammunition sales. So when we launched our first machine, the locals actually, a couple of them sent out the local ATF to vet us, and they gave us the thumbs up right away. So that was, so from a whiteboard session, it was just, it was a matter of, all right, man, we already had our manufacturers because we already had the machine technology. We already knew who we were working with at the time. And then it was just setting up the suppliers on the ammo side and making sure we met all the regulation specs. So it wasn't too difficult, but
Where do you even start to get into like a vending machine business? Like, let's say someone's listening to this right now and they're like, "Oh, I have an idea. I want to put X in vending machines," right? Like,
yeah. Well,
how do
there's
you?
there's probably there's 6 or 7, U.S. based companies out there that provide this type of, equipment, technology out there. What we did was, we went out and got proactive, and then we got a patent for the vending of ammo specifically. So it's called a method of use patent. But yeah, we went and secured that right away. But there are people using this technology right now for alcohol sales, golf balls, and even there's some similar technology for renting golf clubs and things like that, where you can then purchase them. So you're seeing a lot of more automated retail enter the market, and what really drove that was the COVID lockdowns. So when everybody came back from the COVID lockdowns, you couldn't find employees. Cost of employees have gone up so much. You guys go to your local CVS's or Walgreens, and you see everything. Half the stuff's locked up behind a counter, and you can't find anybody to open up the case to get you some razors or something. I mean, that's kind of, where the world went after, post COVID. So automated retail kind of resolves a lot of those issues, right? It's secure, it's all locked up, it's safe, it's accessible. You can put age restrictions on it, and so it's a really good way to take age restricted items and make them available to people, in the right format.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like you said, they're going to get the wrong idea when they hear the basic concept of it. But I've actually seen the machine. You were exhibiting at Shot Show, and we'll get into the technology piece of what you got to go through the process, right? Like we can
Right.
dive into that, but um, people don't realize like I've had instances where I've had to wait like almost 45 minutes to grab a box of ammo
Right.
because I'm in some town and we're trying to get some ammo to demo a firearm or whatever, right? And it's just like there is such a long line at the place to, I mean, New Jersey, where I'm originally from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not only do you have to be a New Jersey resident with an ID card to get ammo, which is ridiculous, but um, you know, every place that sells ammo, you're going to end up waiting. You're taking a number. It's almost like being at a really good Italian deli. You know what I mean? So it's just like,
45.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
The convenience factor in that alone is amazing. But talk about a bit about the technology. How to walk someone through how they find your machine. They're like, "Ooh, I could use some 9mm." Now what happens?
So the machines are, they function just like any other, your iPad or, your phone. It's just a touch screen, and you just select your products. You go through, we have pistol rounds, we have, rifle, shotgun. We're adding accessories like red dots and mag loaders, and all that's coming in 2025. We're adding all the accessory pieces in, but you just select the category you want, select the product you're looking for. It'll go into a shopping cart just like you would if you're shopping online. You go to checkout. Once you go to checkout, it's going to ask you for your ID. So it'll scan your driver's license. And then it's going to, once it scans your driver's license, it's looking to see that it's a valid driver's license, that you're of legal age to use the machine, um, that's not expired or anything like that. And then it's going to take a picture of you. It's going to match that picture to the driver's license just to verify that you are the person holding the driver's license. So we do that just for the point of transaction. I mean, we don't store anybody's data. We don't store the driver's license info, their facial recognition. It's not on a cloud. It's not in the machine. It's just for the point of transaction. Once that's verified, then you run your credit card. It dispenses your product, and you're on your way.
And I want to get back into the facial recognition, because I think that's a controversial subject amongst the 2A crowd, and I know you've taken a lot of heat for that. I've taken a lot of heat for the free and anonymous mental health screenings in the past, and people got over it, right, with longevity, and I think you'll get there too. But first, I want to talk about this technology is put into place, right? And you're like, okay, this is the process. You've whiteboarded the process. Like they put their, they put their card in, they do this, they got to do this. How long did that take to perfect, to make it perfect?
Well, yeah, really, it wasn't long, because we have excellent backend software providers. As I was mentioning, this technology was already being used for alcohol. So they already
Okay.
had the tech in place. They've had alcohol machines, at Super Bowl the last couple of years. They have digital, what I would call, digital bartenders now that are, showing up and things like that, where they can mix drinks and do all kinds of things at the machines. But so the technology was there. It was really just an application process, just we're going to supply it to. So what we had to look at more so than the technology was, the weight of the ammunition, the size of the boxes, things like that. Can the machines handle, considerable amount of weight if someone's, purchasing, a couple of boxes of, 9mm when it goes into the part to dispense, the dispense elevator. We wanted to make sure it was going to be able to handle it. But that was really the only issue. From a tech standpoint, it was already, been tested, it's been used in other similar type of circumstances. So we were really confident with the technology, and it's proven to be so. If we have the only problem I would say, that we're perfecting and getting better is in the facial piece, the facial recognition portion, is if these guys have really long beards. So if you have like a really long beard and you didn't have a beard on your ID, sometimes it won't pair up, because it's looking at a 92-point facial recognition aspect, right? So it's not getting enough points because the beard can influence it. But outside of that, it's been really successful, and so far just very, very minimal. We have very minimal rejections in terms of that when someone is legitimate, right? So we've had it does its job. We've done testing with minors and having minors go up to get ammo, and it's been 100% every time in terms of rejecting the ID.
Yeah, it's really interesting because that's been going on forever, by the way. I mean, I remember, I had a friend who lost a ton of weight in college,
Right.
and literally like always had issues with the ID because people are like, "That's not you," and he's like, "It is me." Like, I lost a ton of weight, but he looked like a completely different person. So it's like you don't need a facial recognition vending machine that problem didn't create from that, right? Like,
Right.
it's been going on forever. But what do you say? Because I think a huge topic around this subject, and I know some other podcasters and some people have made comments without actually talking to you, right? Which frustrates you, which I understand, and you completely are validated for being frustrated, like, in my opinion. But you had people make the comments like, "Oh, that's great. So facial recognition, now the government can see what I'm buying and they can track my ammo and all that stuff." Like, what do you say?
Yeah. So back in like July of 24, right? We just got a huge media explosion, and a lot of people. We won't mention any names. Their knee-jerk reaction was, "Oh, these guys are just giving it to the government. They're tracking us and they're giving our ammo, our ammo sales to the government," which is completely untrue, right? And I know you've had a chance to meet our team. I mean, there's not a larger group of 2A supporters in the country than our team. I mean, we've got vets on our board. We have vets that are operators in the company. We've got we work with spec op guys. We've done consult. When we first were launching it, we met with a couple of different officers that are still active in the military and got their opinion and advice on things. We're really pro 2A, but we got a real knee-jerk reaction that we're giving it to the government, and that's why I kind of mentioned earlier, like we do not store information. We do only take credit card, right? The machine, or credit or debit. It's not operationally, it's just not as easy, to take cash anymore. And when you're spread out across the country and things like that, and try to collect it from machines, and it's just another point of potential vandalism and things like that. So we don't, we use debit and credit card. And the truth is, if you go buy your ammunition at any other big box retailer or online, you're using your debit or credit card. The banks have that information, right? That's just kind of the way it is. And I know there was, was a year or two ago when it came out in the news that the government was going to the bank records and seeing where people were buying. And, that's always going to be an issue. And that's a legislative issue that hopefully is being addressed now. I think we're probably all, thumbs up. That's being addressed. But, so that piece of it, there's not a lot we can do about it. That's on the merchant services side and the bank side and things like that. But when it comes to your driver's license and what you put in your face at the machine, those things aren't stored. So, I think when we had that call with Patrick with his gun alert product, and he really said it right. It's like, technology in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's who's using the technology and if they have any kind of malintent to use the technology in a bad way. That's the issue.
Just like a gun, just like a firearm,
right. So the tool is not the enemy. And so, I mean, one of our hopes in 25 is to really establish and build a trusting relationship with the 2A community, that they can get to know us as a company and know what we're about culturally as a company, and that we walk the same lines that they do. We're on the same side of that, and they can start to really trust that we don't abuse their trust and keep their information.
And that makes sense, and I think that will clear up a lot of things for listeners.
I mean, Mike, the truth of the matter is, right, I can go on my cell phone right now, right? I can go to a website. I can go order 1,000 rounds, have it shipped to my house. This thing's being tracked more than anything in our life. I mean, right? I mean, seriously. So when we start looking at the alternatives, the other alternatives are your big box retailers that they have, since COVID, theft among ammunition has gone up 20 to 30% in big box retailers. Right? I can tell you that. So I'm just about to turn 52, and I've never once been carded for purchasing ammunition ever. Not since I was a kid, not now. And when you look at, for instance, like the tragedies that go on, the average age of a school shooter is between 14 and 19. Right. So how are they acquiring ammo and well, it's through the big box retailers that don't check. It's through the online where there's no real true verification. It's those things. And, I think as a community, I know you and I have talked about this off the record, but as a community, we need to take responsibility. If you're in the industry, you're a firearm manufacturer or a retailer or ammunition manufacturer, we need to start taking steps to improve, take responsible steps to improve the safety of our community. By doing that, right, we take away the fuel to the fire that the legislators want to enact, horrible gun laws and horrible legislation. Right. So we just need to be proactive and do the right thing, take the steps. And technology allows us to do that when we put it in the right hands.
Yeah, there's a lot we need to unpack with this, because I'm thinking about 10 different questions while talking to you about this stuff. But Clover Tack, good friend of the show, said, well, I have a beard, I'm out. No, I think you have a beard. Clover. I'm assuming you have a beard on your ID.
Yeah, you're okay.
Yeah, you're good. But he asked a great question. He says, on the vandalism note, how do we secure the machines? Breaking into an ammo machine is much different thing than, say, a candy bar machine.
Yeah, so
focus on physical security. Yeah.
Yeah, so the machines are always inside. We don't place them outside. It's not like a red box outside of a store. Right now, our machines are in grocery stores. We have a lot of requests in convenience and hardware stores that we're starting to roll out into. They always go inside where there's security cameras. The machines are double wall steel. Like even behind the touchscreen, it's all steel. They weigh about, with the ammunition inside, they weigh about 2,000 pounds. So this isn't, it's got a triple mechanism lock on it. So, I mean, you would really have to have a lot of time, a blowtorch or, something more than just a dually to drag it out. And you've got to break, and you'd have to break into the store with all the security cameras and the alarms. So it's a much more secure setup. I mean, just not long ago, out in Greenville, Texas, one of the big box retailers was broken into, right? And they just scooped it off the shelf and were out the door. You can't do that here. I mean, it's locked. It's securely locked up.
Yeah, that's good to know. What has been the pushback like from, I would say, the gun ignorant or the anti-gun side, or maybe the media that tends to be center left?
It's so great. So when we had the original media blitz in July last year. I mean, I was doing 9 interviews a day, right? And it was all mainstream local media. It was CNN, it was BBC, it was we had a recent article in the Washington Post. A lot of the more left-leaning media meccas, they were really coming after us. And what I realized was after the first couple, one, take the interview, because if you don't, they're going to write their own narrative. So you definitely want to take the interview. 2 is that after about the first 2 or 3, I realized there's a big lack of knowledge and understanding and education about how ammunition is sold in the market in general, right? So they have no clue. They've never purchased ammo. They don't know the difference between what we're doing versus the big box retailer versus the online person. They can't speak to it. So I started engaging them more in a way of before we'd even have the interview. I said, I'll have the interview with you, but only if you'll give me 20 minutes prior to the interview, just to give some background. And I've never had anyone say no to that. They all said yes. And we would have conversation about the industry in general. So by the time we got to the interview, it wasn't that they would never come out and say, oh yeah, this is better, or safer or more secure, or it's a good alternative, because they don't want to acknowledge that, okay, there's something good going on in the industry. That would be ludicrous in their mind. But what they did, but many times they became more balanced in their reporting of us. It was like, they would tell both sides of the story, not just one. Generally they'd go interview some professor or some psychologist somewhere that, oh, they're making it more accessible, and that's going to make it more. We're not making it more accessible. We're making it more convenient. It's already as accessible as it can get, right? We're making it more convenient. But they would start selling both sides of the story. And many times off the record, when we were off camera, whoever was interviewing me would say, yeah, you guys are a much better alternative, and you really are helping solve a problem. They wouldn't say that on camera.
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting because it's kind of the same thing with I would compare it to the Walk to Talk America Kids to Kings program, right?
Right.
When a lot of people interview any representative of the organization, and we start talking about the Kids to Kings program, you see this reaction of like, is it a good idea to put these firearms in the hands of these kids? And then you say, well, why do you have a problem with it? And they have to be very careful, right? Like how they proceed forward after that. And it's kind of the same thing here, because they're not looking down the field many times, to understand like this is a more secure way to sell a firearm accessory, ammo, whatever, right? But it's really interesting because was it the Post? I think it was the Washington Post, right? It was the Post where the kid ended up reaching out to me
Yeah.
to interview me because you had said you were doing this stuff. And one of the things I noticed that he was trying to do, he was trying to make it seem like it wasn't your idea to feature the Walk the Talk America 15-second clip in the beginning. It's almost as if like I forced you to do it or something like that.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah, it was really interesting the way he was trying to frame it because and he was polite and everything like that, but I just think he couldn't wrap his head around that there's this person who created this machine who wants responsible firearms ownership out there and wants to touch on everything. And for all the listeners that don't know, when I first met Grant and we were talking, Grant said, "Hey, listen, do you have like a 15-second clip commercial that you could give me and I'll drop it in to all my machines?" And Kevin and I cooked up something. Kevin, I think you nailed it, man. You hit the perfect commercial for this 15 seconds, right? Because how do you talk about Walk the Talk America in 15 seconds? But Kevin did it. And it was funny because we sent it to you. It's like, well, when's it going to be in the machines? You're like, right now. Like,
Yeah,
I would drop it into these machines right now. But it's awesome because, someone that walks up to the machine, and I got to see this at SHOT Show, can kind of have that. It's almost like a cause of pause, in my opinion. Our cause of pause program, it's just like if you're in a bad way and you're not feeling good, you literally are like, oh cool, the machine actually gave me some advice. You know what I mean? So I can't thank you enough for letting us do that. And I thought, in my opinion, I think that is one of the things that when this kid went back to his higher ups, right, and he's writing this article, they can't deny that that's something they can't deny that you're doing. You're addressing suicide. You're addressing mental health.
Yeah. These guys, the higher ups, he told me up front that the higher ups were probably, spin it a little bit. I mean, he even acknowledged that to me. But I'm thankful. We're thankful for the publicity that we've got even from those groups. The bottom line is that the majority of firearm owners, right? They're responsible firearm owners. It's a super small minority that aren't responsible firearm owners. When you look at statistically how many people own firearms across the country, what the average number are in a home, etc. So it's a super minority that are irresponsible. We look at kind of what we're doing, kind of like the situation years ago when drinking and driving was a really big problem, right? Not that it's not even a big problem now, but it's less of a problem than it used to be. And what changed it is groups like Lyft and Uber and our phones. So ride sharing made a huge dent in the number of tragedies in drinking and driving, which is fantastic, right? So when we look at all the legislative issues, I don't like, none of us want to see government start trying to legislate our rights. And what's great about capitalism and technology is that it allows for the private sector to create solutions that will protect our rights. So that's really kind of what we're about. We're not trying to restrict people from getting ammo. We're making it more convenient, closer to them, so they don't have to drive 10 miles to wherever they got to go. In some cases 60 miles were some of the places where we're located right now. But what we're doing is we're making it more convenient, and then we're actually helping preserve firearm rights and the gun laws in our country by using technology to keep it in the hands of those who are responsible gun owners, which is the majority of us all. And I think that's really what we all want. And I think it's surprising to the media to realize that, oh my gosh, these people that actually own firearms care, and they actually do care about the tragedies, and they actually are taking steps to improve things. For some reason in their mind, they think that, we want to run around with, grenades strapped to our chest and, throw them at the driver that cuts us off. That's what
Right.
that's what they think our mentality is. And it's so when you get to know them, when you get to know them and engage them and really try to engage the conversation and educate them, they kind of soften on the topic. It makes it
Well,
difficult for them to bash you.
and in defense of their side, which I'm not big on doing, but I will do this.
That's fine.
Our side hasn't been necessarily quick or open to figure out alternative solutions to what all of our problems are,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
You know,
I don't mean to cut you off. They push us in
no,
a reactionary state,
right.
right? So so they push us into this. Oh, it's gonna be background checks, and the red flag laws, and then now some states are doing background checks on ammo now, and they just making it tougher and tougher. So there's a reactionary pullback the other direction. And and what I'm suggesting to everybody in the industry, if you're one of the major players in the industry, um, we have the ability to be proactive and not reactive, and take that power away from them, and and preserve our rights. And that's what the industry as a whole should be focused on.
Yeah, I agree. I think when you look at products like Gun Alert, right? And you have the CEO, Patrick, coming out and saying, we scrub the information.
Right.
Like, and hey, let him hang himself. If he doesn't do that, we're going to find out real fast, right? Like
Right.
the Liberty Safes of the world. Like we're going to find out real fast who's doing what. And that's what I always used to say to people about, Walk the Talk America, because in the beginning, our flagship program that we had was the free and anonymous mental health screenings. And in the beginning, there was a huge, skepticism of like, well, where's this information going and everything like that. And I had to prove by doing the screenings myself. And I know like Maj Tory and a couple other people like actually took screenings on YouTube. Nothing ever happened. No one got in trouble. The ATF didn't come knocking at people's doors. No one was put on the NICS list. But to this day, if someone says something like they had never heard of Walk the Talk America and they ask me about that, I say, I've been around for 6 years. 6 years. If there was one incident of someone filling out the free and anonymous mental health screening and it went sideways and they lost their gun rights, it's a wrap for me.
Right.
There's no, oh, that was a mistake. That. So we can't even afford to screw up in our own community. So let us hang ourselves, but let's embrace the technology that the 2A people are bringing forward. And if you don't want to use it, don't use it. But it's there, and understand what it represents. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I had a conversation, this funny anecdote, with this woman one time. I was at a conference, and we're sitting outside and having a coffee, and she starts talking to me, asked me where I'm from, because we're here in Dallas, and I'm always wearing boots or something. So she assumed I was from Texas, and I said, and she starts talking to me about the NRA, and starts talking to me about the shootings, and well, they all support fully automatic weapons, and all these shootings are fully automatic weapons. I was like, no. I'm like, you're not going to find them saying that, that everybody should have fully automatic weapons. Those are, fully automatic weapons are not legal on the, in the community. Oh, no, they are. I'm like, no, they're not. She goes, well, how do these guys get fully automatic weapons when we see it? And I said, well, you're really not seeing it. What you're seeing are semi-automatic weapons. I said, but the ones that do have it, they got them illegally, or they modified them illegally, or something like that. So we're having this conversation. By the end of the conversation, we went down this rabbit hole. And by the end of it, she agreed with everything that the 2A community agrees with. And her jaw was on the floor. She was embarrassed because she actually agrees with everything we support. So it's really just a lack of education. The anti-gun lobby, if they didn't grow up with guns, or they don't think we're sensitive to the tragedies that happen. And of course we are. When we educate them and we get to know them, and we take the time to listen to what they have, and not become reactive and not become confrontational, it's pretty amazing. They actually are surprised. They're almost pleasantly surprised at getting to know us. And I would love to see more of that in our dialogue with the anti-gun lobby, trying to educate, because that's really what it is.
I think a lot of 2A people they're used to being in an echo chamber, and that's because it's easier for us to live in an echo chamber where we're all like-minded, and we can all talk about the same things and like what we'd like to see,
Right.
But what happens when we go outside of it, because I've been doing this for so long now at this point, like there's no, you can't put me into a corner, it's not going to happen. Right. So like I'm so well versed in every talking point and every way of seeing where they're coming from, but also making them think about something or drawing it to something else to where you're like, okay, well, obviously like, I had dinner, like, here, let me give you a perfect example. I went to dinner the other day with somebody that grew up in New York City. He did not grow up around firearms at all. And, but he was a thinker. You could tell he wasn't, but he still believed that the majority of these school shootings happened with a machine gun.
Yeah, right.
So when I told him that, I was like, this is a non-starter. It's like not even a discussion piece because it's impossible for us to get a machine gun. Like we're not going to be able to just go to a gun shop and buy a machine gun and walk out with it. And he was like, so is that something the media created? And I'm like, absolutely. And I'm like, and that's the problem, because that's why nothing ever can get done, because when things go to legislation, they get shot down because people realize like, oh, all this ridiculousness that people said it wasn't that. It's like finding out your Honda is not a Ferrari, right? Like it is, right? Like,
Yeah,
oh, I thought I was driving a Ferrari the whole time.
Yeah.
It's a Honda. They painted it and they put Ferrari on the side of it. Like it's just one of those things where I feel like we haven't reached that level yet. And I guess, that's what guys like you and I are there for now, right? Like, let us be the ones to do it. It's like, you don't have to make the argument. If you need to sit on the sideline because you can't stay calm, or you don't feel you're versed enough, you're going to get eaten alive, then sit out. I mean, I remember after Sandy Hook, I owned a gun company. I owned a major importer, and it was near New York City, being in New Jersey. And I remember Pierce Morgan's people were looking to bring someone from the firearms industry on his show. Right. And they contacted me, and I was, I'm the type of guy who will talk to anybody. So I had numerous conversations, and they wanted me to come on, but I was smart enough to realize that I was not ready for that moment. Right. Like I'm not who I am now. I would do it in a New York second now. I would. Yeah. But I'm not who I am now. He would have eaten me alive. They would have eaten me alive. I was also smart enough to try to like push it off to some of my friends in the industry. And I remember calling like Martin Tuason from Arms Corps, the president of Arms Corps. And I was like, dude, opportunity to go on the Pierce Morgan show, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, let me think about it. And he called me back. He's like, no, you're trying to get me killed. I'm not doing it. Right. Like we all were at that point, like, but we never, at that time, we didn't have any solutions to any of these issues coming from the firearms industry, except for the typical talking points. Now I feel like this is why I would be ready for that conversation, because there's nowhere he could take me where I couldn't say, well, that's why you need Walk the Talk America. And that's why you need this whole movement from the firearms community. But, having said that, I knew I wasn't ready. So I stayed on the bench, right? Like, and that there's nothing wrong with that, but let's push forward the people that can articulate those arguments and can go into those rooms and can walk out of them without, an angry mob trying to kill the person, and giving those people something to think about.
Yeah.
Like you said, even if they fake it in front of all their friends and they have the mob mentality, but secretly you're still making progress.
Yeah. So I had a professor from, we get a lot of hate mail, as you might imagine.
Oh, I bet it's got to be fantastic.
Yeah. We're creating a hate mail scrapbook for the office.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, but it's brilliant. But I had a professor from one of the Ivy League schools, won't mention which one, but reach out to me, and he's, how do you sleep at night? I can't believe you're doing this. I mean, just the typical rhetoric. And, so I just replied back to him real polite, and I gave him an education. And he says, his response was, can't believe, he goes, I'm really surprised that you responded back. And I appreciate the civil discussion. And like, he was ready for me to come back. If I came back at all, he was ready for me to come back angry.
With fire. Yeah.
Yeah. And we ended up exchanging, 2 or 3 emails. And I told him, at the end of the day, he just doesn't like guns, period. Right. He would get rid of the Second Amendment. So we can part ways. We don't agree there. And that's just simply not going to happen in this country. So we were never going to get to the same. But what was great about the conversation was he he had a different level of respect, at least for the civil conversation. And I want to see more of that from the 2A community, and less of the angry, we're gonna push back just as hard as you're pushing. Let's educate, let's be civil about it. And then let's be innovative as an industry, and do the things you're doing, that Patrick's doing, that we're doing. And I'm certain there's other groups out there that maybe just haven't gotten the attention, that are trying to do the same thing. But we need to be proactive, and long term, that's what's going to benefit our Second Amendment rights.
And there's a way you can do this without being political, without bringing politics into it. I mean, there is a way to do it. And sometimes that is what causes the issue, right? That's what gets people bowed up, right? But I have a method, and it's worked my entire life. What I do, and this has happened numerous times, especially when I'm out at a bar or something, and there's somebody in the group or somebody next to us, it's like, ooh, there's a person from the firearms industry. Now I get to ask them all these questions, right? Because how often do you actually meet somebody that works inside the firearms industry, and we'll talk about it? And I always say to them, when they want to talk about gun rights, or they want to talk about the issues that come with the responsibility of firearms and some of those negative outcomes, I say, we can have this discussion. At the end of this discussion, two things are either going to happen. You're either going to say, I hate guns and I just wish they'd all go away. I wish I had a magic wand.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because you don't want people to die. And I understand that. Or you're going to say, I need to rethink the way I feel about this whole situation, because I didn't know any of this. And what I always tell them is, regardless of which path you choose at the end of this, I'm still going to buy you a beer and give you a hug.
Yeah.
And it has worked every time. And you get people that go the A route and the B route. You know what I mean? And but it's just, you're allowing them to say, you don't have to change who you are. You're right for feeling the way you do, because these are all tragic incidents that happen with these firearms. But there's a lot more nuance to this conversation than just what you're being fed by the media. And it works every time.
Yeah. And we need, I love, for instance, I was reading on your LinkedIn this morning. I saw your study that you put out. Loved it. Great information. I forwarded it to all the team.
Kevin, we got to give Kevin his flowers for that.
Well done. Because that's that kind of information. We need more of that kind of statistical data, that kind of information. All those things help. And that's just one. That's just a good example, Kevin, of being really proactive at trying to uncover as a 2A community where we're at, what we're doing, where we can improve, how do we feel about certain topics. All those go back, help us proactively become more innovative when we have the information and the data. So there's clearly not enough of that happens, and so applaud you guys for doing that. That was a good piece. That was a really good bunch of data. So
yeah.
You guys if your listeners haven't checked it out, they need to check it out, because it's really good.
No, and I appreciate that. And one of the funniest thing about this, and Kevin, I haven't talked to you about this yet, but Kevin and I take we have a good working relationship with a lot of researchers, and some of them might be anti-gun, right? But we don't let that get in the way of our discussions. And as everyone knows who follows the show, firearms people are now being invited to the research conferences. The research conference people would tell you that we've always been invited, but we've never gone. But listen, it doesn't matter. We're all here now, right? And it's only going to grow. But it's really funny, because our method and everything we did was just completely crapped on by researchers. And we own it. We're like, look, we don't know what we're doing. And we are getting a lot done with zero money. Some of these researchers get millions of dollars to conduct these surveys. And, one of their biggest complaints is we can't get gun owners to tell us the truth or take these surveys. And so we just went out and smashed that, like just basically showing them, well, who are you asking? And maybe it's the messenger who's asking the questions that's causing them to be afraid to answer. Sure. Right. So I love that we smashed this. But my point here, which is hysterical, is I've had so many researchers who are like, we can't wait to see what this data says. I'm like, oh, now you want to see what the data says. You're looking forward to reading it.
Yeah.
Of course. Like, why wouldn't you?
Well, no, and you're 100% correct. I mean, again, it's like, it's who's requesting the data, right? Because there's a natural assumption that, you know, the anti-gun guys are going to use that data with bad intent, and, you know, they're trying to capture. So we're going to share with you. But when the industry actually uses it, and we're going to use data for positive things in the industry to help preserve the rights, right? There's a different respect. So it's the same thing with tech, right? You can use it for bad purposes or good purposes. You know, you need to know who you're working with. So I would be apprehensive. Like if I got a survey from some liberal group that wanted to ask me about my firearms, I probably wouldn't respond. I mean, I'd probably ignore it too.
Yeah, because you're going to shape that information. But so this is a great segue. Speaking of data, I'm sure, you know, these machines, obviously, you know, what rounds have sold. How do you, because I want to kind of bring the focus back to you and what you're doing, but how do you determine what machines, where they go, and then what ammo you have in there? Because I'm assuming, like, for example, you know, rural versus, you know, more populated areas, the demands for the type of ammo are different.
Well, like everybody else, I mean, 9mm is the most popular selling round that we have out of the machine. So it makes up the majority of what we sell. And we offer everything from 22 to 300 blackout and everything in between. So it's a really good selection. We'll make additions based on requests. We kind of have a base package that we go into a location with. But for instance, like in Oklahoma, one of our stores there, we have a lot of requests for 410. So 410 is not something we would just naturally, you know, offer in the machine. So, you know, we're put 410 in that particular machine. So if we get requests for a lot, and, you know, if we get a request, one of our other Texas stores or get a lot of requests for 44 Magnum. So we'll put that in there. That's one of the great things about the model of what we're doing. We can change pricing with a keystroke. So if someone reaches out to us and says, hey, you guys are so much high, you know, we try to stay plus or minus 5% on our pricing with any big box retailer. So we track it all the time, and we can just sit at the keyboard and digitally adjust any machine. But if someone reaches out to us email and says, hey, the guy across the street selling it this much, I mean, we can make this switch on the fly, and it's instant in terms of adjusting pricing. They can reach out to us for requests. We'll stock what's requested. But that's we basically run with a package, you know, with your primary categories from rifle, shotgun, and pistol. We try to adjust it a little bit based on season. So if particular hunting season is coming up, whether it's turkey or deer or dove season or whatever, you know, we'll try to adjust, you know, the SKUs. Now, our original machine held about 32 to 35 different SKUs. So our new machine holds just about almost right at 60 SKUs. So we've got almost double now with the new version of our machine. So we'll have a lot more offering. That's why we're bringing in all the accessories too.
Do you offer any franchise opportunities if people are listening and want to see if they can get involved, or what does that look like?
Kevin, thank you for asking, sir. Absolutely. So we just started offering franchises in December. We're about to sign our first franchisee, hopefully this next week. He's in North Carolina. But we had back in that media blitz, we had over 1,000 requests for franchises. So we originally were just putting out corporate machines, and we pivoted because we had so many requests. And then we spent the next several months building out all of our legal franchise documents and getting all that in place. And if you haven't ever looked at a franchise document, it's like an encyclopedia. It's just, there's so many laws around franchises. But so we started offering franchises, and I mean, anybody that's interested can just find it on the website, and there's a link to get the information, and we go from there. But so hopefully, you know, right now we've got franchisees looking at Wisconsin, Idaho, West Texas, Tennessee, Florida, the Carolinas. So we're hoping to see a lot of growth in this year.
Yeah, the rollout strategy, I think a lot of people are curious about, because you started the first two states, right? Were Texas and Oklahoma?
Alabama, and
Alabama. Okay, that's right. I remember. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, looking at the list, and because my daughter goes to the University of Alabama, and I was in Tuscaloosa at some point, but I didn't even put two and two together to go check it out. But I saw the machine at Chacho, and for those of you like guys, jump on the website to check out the machine. It is really cool. It's not like the old school machines where you like can look. It's not like a candy bar machine. Speaking of candy bar machines, though, those damn things used to rob me all the time, and then you had to beat the hell out of it or shake it to shake some stuff down. Right. What's the process there? I mean, have you had any issues? Obviously, if you had a ton of issues, you wouldn't be here talking to me right now, but I'm just saying, what is it like when someone does have an issue? I'm sure people are curious, like who handles the maintenance?
Yeah, we handle all the maintenance. If a machine ever has a mechanical problem or, something like that, or a tech piece, we have our own teams that roll out and we'll take care of the machines. A lot of the times, if it's something digital, I mean, we can address it just, from the office. We haven't had many. So that was part of the movement to a new machine. The ones we had were great. They're doing really well. Everything is designed to err on the side of safety, right? So if there's any kind of error with the machine, it doesn't dispense. It's not a situation where it made an error and dispensed to the wrong person. The default is to err on the side of safety. But yeah, when we first rolled them out and we were getting them there were maybe some hiccups with the weight of some of the boxes, right? So we moved to a more robust machine, and we kind of figured that out, and we're able to recalibrate them and make them, a lot more effective. So right now, the new machine, the first new machine we rolled out is in Colorado, in Buena Vista, Colorado. We've had 0 failures. It's been 100%, in terms of dispensing, whether you buy one box or 5 boxes. Yeah.
That's cool. And now you're opening up to other products as well, not just ammo. I know Gun Alert is trying to get their product in there.
Yeah,
makes sense.
We'll have Gun Alert. So these next 2 machines that are rolling out, we'll have Gun Alert and the 3 new style machines in the next probably 30 to 60 days or less. Yeah. 30 days.
Yeah, that's very cool. I remember, I told the story at the beginning of the episode about sitting at dinner with Martin, and I was talking to him about your machines, and he obviously said, I thought that was fake. I thought that was like an Onion story or a Babylon Bee story, and I was like, no. And I remember he was like, he looked over at Kaloy, who's like his American sales rep for ammo, and he was just like, we got to get in those machines. This is the most forward-thinking thing I've heard in a long time. He was genuinely impressed, which I think is a good thing. I think that in the future there's going to be some bright spots for you.
Well, we hope so. We've started reaching out to some of the big box retailers just this week. In fact, if you look at the theft rate, it costs them a lot of money of the theft rate, and most of the time they don't have the staff to work the floors and the aisles. So they're behind the counter, selling firearms, the big ticket items, and so there's a high degree of theft. There's a lot of sales to minors that are going on. I mean, that's essentially what happened to Walmart and why they started pulling from their 2,000 stores after the incident in Texas. And so our solution resolves those problems. It eliminates shrink, no sales to minors, no need for extra staff. So it solves a lot of those problems for them to remain in the category and offer it to customers.
Could you ever picture a world one day where these machines potentially could sell you a firearm? I mean, it's the same process, right?
Yeah. So yeah, if they're ever listening. So, one of the things where we had that discussion just recently regarding Grab a Gun, I think Don Jr. is involved with that company. And it's very easy for us to pipe in with Grab a Gun and actually be able to order your firearm right there. That's a very easy thing for us to do. We don't do background checks, so it'd have to go through their portal and how they do it. So it would just be a kind of a pass through, but it would make it.
Yeah, I was just thinking if like a some of the big box stores actually had one of your machines there. It's an easy tie-in, right? Like
Yeah.
you go through the process. Once again, creating convenience for gun shop employees have to deal with a lot. They
Yeah.
really do. I mean, we can sit there and be frustrated with them, but they do have to deal with a lot. They have to look for straw purchases. They have to,
Yeah.
I used to call it the white man's barbershop back in the 90s and the early
I'll stand around
2000s.
talking. Yeah.
Yeah, but now it's like everybody's barbershop now,
Yeah.
just with the amount of different
That's
groups
funny.
of people that have like come into the community. So you can't even call it the white man's barbershop anymore. It is literally everybody's barbershop. I mean, everyone
Right.
from females to, you know what I mean? All communities. But so the way I look at it is it would be a perfect fit if someone could purchase their ammo and then kind of get information about firearms digitally on a screen that they
Yeah.
might be interested in, and then it can just walk over the counter to complete the transaction through the next check.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
From an informational standpoint, that's easy. That's
Yeah.
that's all.
Well,
That's
especially the way that you're able to drop information into these machines, like,
yeah. On the like
yeah.
right now we're in 25, so we're looking at being able to get concealed carry insurance on the machine. We'll be able to do
Mm.
that. So, we get we're going to add a lot of different services along the way. We have advertising platform with the machines. I mean, you mentioned that earlier with you guys. So we're getting more requests for that for people that want to put up ads. So if you're in the space or you're manufacturing your ammos in the machine, you want to roll ads, you can, because we're in a lot of places where you can't buy ads. Looks like we lost Kevin. I just was noticing.
Oh yeah, he dips out every once in a while. It's like Jay and Silent Bob. When he says something, it really has an effect. It's a good
Yeah.
question, and he means. but Jake and I do most of the talking on these shows. So no, but I w- looking into the camera, talking to the audience,
Yeah.
what would be your message for anybody that maybe is still skeptical after they've heard this, or maybe they just tuned in, right? Like, what would you say?
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, our biggest objective for 25, right? Aside from bringing a bigger product selection to the customers, which we're doing for sure, is we really are focused on building trust with a 2A community, right? That's something we don't take lightly. I mean, the 2A community is one of the most loyal customer base out there when they trust you and they believe in what you're doing. We really want to build, trust with the 2A community. We think that has to be earned. It's not something that's just given. Um, so it's really important for us to get across the message that, we are part of the 2A community. We have no agenda beyond providing convenient, opportunities to purchase ammunition and accessories to law abiding gun owners. Right. And I think we all agree with that. So there is no storage of data, no selling of data. It's nothing, it's the point of transaction and that's it. And it's gone. And that's really important for everybody to understand and trust. I would be the same way if I didn't know. It's easy for me to say that because it's my company and I know what we're doing. But if I was just a consumer out there, that might be my first, honestly, check and balance and be like, okay, what's going on with the data? So we really want to have transparency with that, and let the customer base know that we're one of them. We're not we're our objective is to preserve our gun rights and the Second Amendment.
So this is your first year at SHOT Show where you're showing the machine.
Yeah.
I know you got sick halfway through SHOT Show, so you missed half of it. But
Yeah.
what was the response like in your eyes for people that were walking up to the booth and being like, "What the hell is this?"
Now the response was tremendous. We've had such great response everywhere we go. I mean, just last night I was having dinner with one of our suppliers, and the guy next to us, he's like, "What do you do?" And he's like, "What's the website?" And he wanted to check it out. We get great responses. Everybody at the show is really generous with their time when they came over. Um, you know, from CEOs of their companies to other employees and just people walking the floor. We had we had a great response. So we loved it. We're going back next year. We've already got the booth space. We're probably be in the same space. So we got it reserved. So with our merchant services providers, give them a little plug. If you guys don't know Verde Payments, they work with firearm and ammo guys. So it's hard to find good merchant services in that space.
Yeah, that's an important thing for us. People
Yeah.
don't realize like our industry gets hammered with people that don't want to represent us or take our money, which is
Yeah.
bizarre,
Merchant
right?
services, insurance, all those things are, so if
Yeah,
you're
it's
in
really
this,
strange.
yeah,
It's the what so the two industries I always laugh about this because at SHOT Show the other industry that's down the street, which is the adult industry, faces the same thing,
yeah,
and both industries are billion-dollar industries, and you think that that's a way we could have joined together to fight all this pushback, but so it's like when you listen to people who are in the adult industry and they're making those complaints, I'm like, we've been facing that stuff for years.
yeah,
You know what I mean? I mean, this has been happening. I remember this happening way back in early 2000s and the 90s. You know what I mean?
yeah.
People become their way of being an advocate or like fighting back is literally like screwing us over so we can't make money.
Yeah, that's why
um,
that's why they're so many, what, 6, 7. I think it's 6 states plus DC now that doing background checks for ammunition sales. I mean, it's just a nightmare. I've talked to guys
yeah
in New York or California, and it's just a nightmare. What they experience. We don't do that, so we're not currently rolling into those states. I kind of have a little juxtaposition there with in terms as the CEO of this company in our direction, because on one hand, right, could we do it? Yes, we can do it. Right, we can do it easier than anybody else. I don't believe I believe it's a violation of our rights, and I think it's ridiculous that we should do background checks for ammunition sales. But at the same time, I feel like there are a lot of 2A supporters in California and in New York, especially and if you go into certain areas, and so they should have a right to accessible ammo as well.
yeah
Convenient ammunition as well. So it puts me in a little of a juxtaposition. They're trying to determine how we want to approach those markets.
yeah
But
you can't abandon those places because if you do then they just win, right?
yeah,
That
then they just win,
they
right?
just win.
So,
Yeah,
and we have the ability to isolate that kind of technology for just one machine, for instance. Like, I can, if I want to roll background checks in and I want it just for California machines or just New York, I mean, we can do that. That's not terribly difficult at all. But we have so much business, we have so much demand. In our first year, we have demand for over 2,000 locations just in the first year.
yeah.
So there's so much business elsewhere. It's kind of we'll look at those states here before long, though.
But yeah, by the way, when we're off and we're talking in private, I'll tell you a funny story of how ignoring California came back to bite my firearms company one day. We were oversold and there was so much demand all over the rest of the country that we were like, screw it. And then when the times changed, we're like, man, I really wish we had California.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So just be careful with that.
That's
Before
funny.
we get out of here, I got one last question. How do you tend to your mental health?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's you're hitting the personal question. So that's the spiritual side of my life. So most people wouldn't know, but I was at one time I was even preaching at one time. I went to I was a seminarian for a while. I didn't get to finish, so I have 3 different degrees, and I was working on getting a master's in divinity, and I finished half of it, and then I had to move. My job at the time moved me out of where I couldn't continue the program. But my son's in seminary up in Nashville right now, my youngest. But so that's really the spiritual side of my life as a Christian and my relationship with Christ, and that's that he's done a phenomenal job at keeping me in check and growing me past my immaturity, where maybe my mental health wasn't as good. I wasn't as a younger man, but yeah, that's how I keep it in check. It's but I think it's one of those things that it's like you lose it if you don't use it, you lose it, right?
Hmm.
So it's things. It's a practice in your life. It's something that I do every day. It's something that in terms of my self study and my relationship with God and what and what we do. That's something that it's constantly a focus in my life. It's a focus in our business, the people we surround ourselves with, the people that associate with. It's just where, uh, I'll lean on God to keep me in check with my mental health any day.
That's awesome. It's always, like I said, there's no right answer to that question, and
Yeah.
we get a different one every time, and we learn a little bit. We learn something new every time. It's pretty cool. All right. On that note, Grant, how do people find you? How do people get a hold of you? How do people get a hold of you for the franchise? How do ammo manufacturers get a hold of you if they want to have their product in your box? And that goes to anybody, right? Like anybody that has an accessory. How do people get a hold of you and find you and check you out?
AmericanRounds.com. Just go to AmericanRounds.com. There'll be a tab. Just it'll be info@AmericanRounds.com. Just send us an email. It'll get distributed to the right person to get in touch with you. And we that's the best way to reach us. Of course, we're on all the social media platforms. Well, I say that, but not all of them, because Facebook bans us every time we try to put anything out there. But from our LinkedIn profiles, Instagram, all the others, we're out there. But we encourage everybody who has questions, even if it's just questions about the tech or questions about why we're doing what we're doing. It doesn't even have to be that want to do business with us. Just reach out. We even those that are anti what we're doing, I respond to them. Even the ones that give us the real hate mail, I respond to them. I want them to know that that we're open to talking to anybody.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited to see where this is in 5 years. I think this is a really cool concept that you come up with, and I know you're an awesome dude. So I will be rooting for you, working with you, and really being a fan of the development of this and seeing where it goes and how many places you get it in and how we could change the narrative in the United States about gun people. So I think this is going to be awesome. So I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having us. I always appreciate it.
Yeah, and I want to thank the listeners. I want to thank all of the sponsors, the Arms Corps, the Rugers, the NASGWs, the Lipsies, the Davidsons, everybody that makes this show possible. Kevin, thank you for making this possible and keeping me sane. How do I tend to my mental health? I have Kevin.
Yeah.
I have a Kevin. No, but until next time, folks, we wish you better mental wellness, and thank you for joining us.